right, House leadership hit a major roadblock today trying to pass the president's one big, beautiful bill. 5 Republicans voted to reject it from advancing out of the Budget Committee. It was a 21-16 vote against it. Trump wants to extend his signature 2017 tax cuts and deliver on a package of goodies, you could call them, that he promised supporters on the campaign trail, like no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security or overtime pay. Here to discuss the implications of the budget bill to everyday Americans like you and me, senior policy analyst at the Independent Women's Forum, Carrie Sheffield, and president of the National Taxpayers Union, Pete Sepp. Carrie, what is your feeling right now? Because I watched some of that hearing today. You know, people like Chip Roy are making some good arguments saying we need to bring down this deficit. We need to cut this spending. And I know they want to get a bill done, but they kind of have an argument.
I can definitely see both sides, but I think it's very important. And President Trump even sent out a post on Truth Social today urging Republicans to not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And so, yes, we need to make sure that the deficit is dropping and the spending is being cut. But there's so many important things that this bill would do that. So, for example, 1.4 million illegal aliens or illegal immigrants would be taken off Medicaid rolls. That will save a lot of money. It's going to put work requirements in for being able to receive Medicaid. There are lots of reforms, to make sure that, most importantly, middle-class families don't see their taxes go up. And we have done some polling at Independent Women's Forum and Independent Women's Voice showing that the vast majority of Americans do not want to see their tax hiked at the end of this year. And so it's got to be done. Yeah. And Grover Norquist made the point this year that if it doesn't pass soon, then Americans aren't going to feel the benefits of it. And so they've got to get it passed.
Yeah, and let's talk about a couple things, Pete. The no tax on tips. Boy, that's a great populist message, and I think the Democrats tried to steal, Kamala Harris tried to steal that from him. Will that effectively have an impact? Because most people that live on tips, I'm not saying this is good or bad, are usually of an income that they're not at the top rate anyway. It seems like it wouldn't cost that much to pass along that ability to not have tax on tips. But what impact would it have on taxpayers?
Well, there aren't a whole lot of tipped workers, so that's a small universe to begin with. I think we also have to think about how we juggle the priorities in this one big, beautiful bill. I call it B3 for the 3 initials there. If you want to do things like provide no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, you want to exempt Social Security benefits from forms of income taxation, well, if you have all of that in the bill, you make other choices that could be a little more broad-based if you didn't have to have all of that tax relief being given out piecemeal. For example, the child tax credit would go up. There'd be a bonus. It would be not only $2,000 continued from the 2017 law, there'd be an extra $500 in there. The standard deduction would actually go up even more than it did in 2017, but those policies end after just 4 years. What if we said, instead of doing no tax on tips, we make those proposals for child tax credit and the more generous standard deduction permanent? Now you're really talking about simplicity. You're talking about longer term relief. You're talking about helping families where they need it most. Those are the kinds of questions we're going to have to be talking about going forward. And yes, while I sympathize with Chip Roy and others about reducing federal spending, this bill gets us a start in that direction, actually slowing the growth, not really cutting federal spending. We have a lot of work to convince the Senate to even do that, and we can't let the process bog down.
Yeah, we're talking about the House bill, and when it goes over to the Senate, they're going to say, thanks a lot for this. We have some other ideas. But let's talk about this that possibly could get through, Carrie. There was a proposal that there could be like a senior bonus. This is being floated certain people 65 and over might get a $4,000 tax break. And the primary reason is they may not be able to come up with the money to say no tax on Social Security overall, but certain people might qualify for this. Would this be a good way to get some votes, get people on track?
I think it would. I mean, anything that can lower the burden of taxes on the American people is a good thing. When you're talking about seniors living on fixed income, a lot of them are living off investments, so the Social Security might supplement their income. We shouldn't be squeezing seniors. We shouldn't be squeezing people who are not working. And so overall, when you look at on average, there is a joint analysis it's bipartisan, the Joint Taxation Committee that was just released. They found that families making between $30,000 and $80,000 would pay 15% less in taxes under this current House plan. And so what that is going to do is going to create, they call it in economics, they call it the animal spirits. When you have greater economic growth, that unleashes more, it creates a virtuous cycle that creates more energy in the economy. Right. And so that is why our polling has shown at Independent Women that 79% of all Americans want to extend the 2017 tax cuts. That includes 78% of women, 78% of independents. Republicans, God put you on earth to cut taxes, do your duty.
Yeah, that's the supply side concept. You cut taxes and it frees up money for other things, creating more business, more economic activity, and consequently more revenue, tax revenue from that increase. Doesn't always work purely. We know that. We've seen deficits go up under supply side, but that'll be another conversation. Before we go, Pete, SALT deductions, state and local tax. There's some people in New York, especially some of the bigger areas where they come from blue states, and there's a limit to how much state and local taxes can be deducted. 10,000. Well, people are paying a lot more than that in some of these areas, and they want to bring home the bacon, if you will, to places in New York, for instance. If they hadn't won enough of the seats in Congress in New York, they wouldn't have the majority they have in the House right now. How should that be resolved? They've come up to 30,000. Should that work?
There always was a limit on SALT, and it was in the form of an alternative minimum tax and a limit on itemized deductions. The Trump tax law simply made that transparent with a $10,000 limit. Now they want 3 times that amount, and that amounts to $365 billion worth of tax relief. I think to myself, for those 5 districts, what could we do with that money? We could do things like make that additional child tax credit permanent. We could make full and immediate business expensing permanent instead of a 4 or 5 year shot. That would help American families all up and down the income scale far more than boosting the SALT cap even further than it's already at now.
Yeah, and expensing, that could free up so much, especially nowadays. There's so many small businesses. Most of our country is small business. So that kind of thing could be really attractive. Wish we had more time. We don't. Carrie Sheffield, Pete Sepp, thank you both for being with us.
My pleasure.
Thank you.